everybody, welcome to my channel. My name is Sharon and this is a channel that is dedicated to all things related to narcissism. I make videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on all types of topics related to narcissism. So if you haven't already, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any videos. I would really appreciate it if you gave the video a thumbs up. It's a free way you can help me out. And definitely don't forget to leave a comment because I like to read what you have to say. So since today is Monday, Monday is the day that my boyfriend Joe joins me on the channel, and we discuss topics related to narcissism from both a male and a female perspective. So I thought what we would do today is do something a little bit different. Joe and I talk every single day. Sometimes, like literally, we've spoken for 4 to 5 hours. I mean, we can really get going. So I thought it might be fun to have a conversation, and I'm just going to record it, and we're going to see where it goes from there. So this might end up being a part 2, if we keep going and I need to end it. Can't go on for hours on YouTube, but we'll just see how that goes. So Joe, does that sound good to you?
Yeah, and I think let's do something. I think one of the listeners or subscribers of the channel mentioned narcissism and addiction, like how a lot of narcissistic cluster Bs have addiction problems, and I thought that would be pretty cool to talk about.
Oh, absolutely. Yep, that we both have a lot to say about that for sure. The reality with narcissists is that even though they act confident, the truth is that they're cowardly, fearful, and insecure. People that have narcissism, everything about them is a lie. It's like they live a pretend life. So for them, they know it. They know they don't fit into society. They feel like outcasts, so they use drugs and alcohol very often to cope. Now, Joe, you and I actually met in some kind of weird roundabout way because of AA. Even though we didn't go to AA together, I would speak about it on my channel because my ex goes to AA, and you have experience with that, and you contacted me and asked me if you could help me understand what's really going on in AA. So do you want to talk a little bit about what happened, how we met, and what you had told me?
Yeah, I just felt like many moons ago when I started listening to your channel, and I had been researching and studying NPD for close to 3.5, 4 years. I felt compelled because there's a lot of things that I truly admired about the channel. The way you just shared your experience, you didn't talk from a pedestal. And when you mentioned that your ex being in AA, I've been in recovery for about 25 years. And the things that he was saying just didn't jive. For somebody in recovery like myself, there were red flags all over the place, and there was no way in hell I wanted you missing any more red flags than you already did when you first met him. So we all know your story for the most part. Towards the end, your ex is arrested, taken out of the house, mental hospital. He's found down the street with a loaded gun in his car with multiple bullets. He was passed out drunk, and he goes to the hospital. And so many of these people are misdiagnosed. These idiot psychiatrists, depression, bipolar. Well, anyways, he's diagnosed with alcoholism, right? Which is fine because he is. The issue, though, is the root cause is his personality disorder. So he goes to AA and he has this epiphany. Holy crap, okay. So that's why I went behind their back and charged up $100,000 in credit card debt. And that's why I didn't pay the mortgage and the utility bills. And that's why I lied. And that's why I gave her the silent treatment and all this hogwash. And he tried to tell you, like, now that I'm going to meetings every day, like I'm a changed person. And just so you know, if I lie or act this way again, it's because I'm an alcoholic. And there's no cure for alcoholism. So just letting you know. And you didn't buy it, you were just a little bit like, is that what AA is about, or recovery? And I just felt compelled to reach out to say, hell no, it's not.
That was my problem initially. I was so confused. I had a very bad impression of AA, but at the same time, I knew that I was getting this information from my ex, and he wasn't a very reliable source. It helped me so much when you actually filled me in on what really is supposed to go on there.
Yeah, it was the exact opposite, actually. I got sober, and there's many like 12-step programs and churches and things. Everybody, every community and fellowship has its flaws, right? But for the most part, a lot of these programs do good things for people, man, and families too. I've witnessed it. I've been a part of it. So I came in the rooms when I was 25 years old. I'm in my late 40s now. This is what I learned in my journey through recovery, is that for me, the alcohol and the drugs were just a symptom of something much deeper. You know, it was deep down inside me. I told you my story, Sharon. I mean, I was 10 years old. My father left me and my brother to an alcoholic, narcissistic mother who later committed suicide. I had these issues. Many traits, unfortunately, as an empath, I do have narcissistic traits like egocentric behavior, selfishness, self-centeredness. And these traits that I had led me to hide and avoid these feelings that I had deep down inside. So the first thing I had to realize was, okay, so they're not going to teach me how to drink right, or how to drink responsibly. It has nothing to do with actually drugs or alcohol. The second thing I had to realize was that it required insight, which I had as an empath. The greatest tool empaths have, one of the greatest tools, is the ability to have insight, to look within ourselves. If we have a degree of honesty, we can look to see the things that need to be changed in us, because we can't change people, places, and things. We can change ourselves. It also required accountability. Like, there was no way in hell that I could just use my drug addiction, alcoholism, and say, well, I'm sorry, I robbed that person, I stole from them, I lied to them. No, we had to like truly make amends, face to face, financial, whatever kind of amends we had to do to be accountable for what we've done, in order to change just a little bit, to not be that person that we were before.
Actually, Joe, could you, when you just said that, making amends, could you just tell us a little bit about what the process is? Because, right away I'm thinking to myself, there is no way that my ex would be able to do this. Narcissists are people that can't look at themselves. They just have to have everybody buy whatever they're trying to sell. So to actually do the type of work to change. So what is the process? I know there's 12 steps. What does that really mean? You don't have to tell me in depth each of the 12 steps, but in general, like, what do you have to do to change, to become a better person, to be able to stop drinking and understand why you drank in the first place?
Well, you got to be able to look at, like, when you look at situations, you're involved in every situation that you're involved in. I had a lot of resentments when I was growing up. Resentments against my dad, resentments against my mom, and I had to look at all that stuff. But it requires the ability to look at myself, to say, okay, so I know what this person did to me, but what was my part in it? So I had a guy one time, he robbed me. He took my money out of my wallet, and I was really pissed off about it. I hated the guy for it. I resented him for it, and I wanted to hunt him down and go look for him. I was justified. He stole my money. Then I had to look at my part and, like, well, what the hell was your part, Joe? You never did anything to him. Well, here's my part. I was just like him. I did that to other people. Here I am getting upset because they took my money, and in reality, I've stolen from a lot of people in my past. Like, what gives me the right to be angry at him? It requires insight, honesty. I couldn't do it on my own. I had to connect with somebody that has done that kind of step work, and I call it shadow work, to be able to look at solely my part in things and to see what needed to be changed in me and my attitude, my perspective. So it requires insight, honesty, connection with another human being. And the word amendment is Latin, comes from, when you think of an amendment in the Constitution, it means to change. It doesn't mean to say I'm sorry. Like, it requires change, to change. Everything that I mentioned to you, Sharon, insight, honesty, connection with another human being, the ability to look at yourself, amending, to change, are those qualities of a narcissist?
Oh God, no. That's like, right away, like, when you started telling me these things, a couple months ago, there's no way my ex could ever do that. But it always amazes me. It really does. I didn't know. I had no idea that AA does so much. It really goes in depth. The insight you have on yourself, it really does blow me away. And you've actually done shadow work on me, and it's been very painful because you've asked me before, right? So, Sharon, how did you get into this relationship? Because you had mentioned in the past, you said to me, could a healthy person be in a relationship with a narcissist? I can't imagine anybody with self-worth, an idea of their own value, the first silent treatment. You wouldn't last a month in a relationship like that.
And it sucks because this is the blessing was this, in a nutshell, is that I, like my ex, I met her in AA 20 years ago. She's antisocial personality disorder, narcissist. It was confusing. You want to talk about confusing? I didn't know nothing about narcissism back then. I started studying it 3 years ago. I was with her for 20 years.
Yeah.
I thought it was her addiction. And, alcoholism and drug addiction sucks. It destroys families. I know that. I've been a part of it. But there is a solution. There's a way out. People can change. Like, I am telling you, like, from my own experience, that narcissism, personality disorder, and abuse, that's like nuclear warfare compared to, like, World War I, alcoholism and drug addiction. The devastation it leaves doesn't even compare. The spectrum of selfish, self-centered is beyond anything that I've ever fathomed in my life. Then you take out the empathy, and that leaves you in a bad spot with somebody that doesn't have any empathy. So to get back to what I was saying about the addiction part of it, because we want to stay in the addiction part, when I started researching NPD, there was a lot of doctors and psychiatrists that said, hey, listen, the host and the parasite relationship, the empath and the narcissist, it's an addiction. Like, literally, they've done MRIs, like studies, scans, molecular, cellular biology, seeing how the serotonin levels in your brains operated. Withdrawal from heroin was very similar, if not easier, than withdrawal from a narcissist. And I knew from like recovery from all drugs and alcoholism that it required complete abstinence. Like, recovery is imperative. You don't have a shot unless you have complete abstinence from that drug. So we call it, with NPD abuse, no contact.
Well, the thing is, like, that's so true. You get this trauma bond, and if you're the victim of a narcissist, you yourself are caught up in this addictive cycle, right? Like, simultaneously, you view the narcissist as both your tormentor and your redeemer. So, you'll be tormented. My ex, you all know this, he's huge on the silent treatment. So I would be miserable. But then it was like when he would start talking to me again, it was almost like I had taken a drug. I felt so good. And then, and so you're in this. So it's almost like you're on drugs too. Is that what you're talking about when you say this?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So, to get back to what you were saying too, Sharon, because I didn't mean to veer off at all. I usually do in our conversations about, like, you're talking about, like, empaths having the ability to change because we have insight, we have some level of honesty, we can connect with other human beings, and we know when we're wrong, we can admit it. So part of my recovery, basically, when I had no contact with the narcissist, I had to take a look at myself. The pain was so great. She was gone for 7 months. If she was the problem, then why was I so miserable? And there was tough questions I had to ask myself. I learned from my own recovery from drugs and alcohol. I had to ask myself, Joe, was there red flags that you intentionally ignored? Like, did you ignore your gut instinct? How old were you when you met this lady? Were you an 8-month-old infant? They had no choice but to stay in the crib and be there with abusive parents. Were you 25 years old that chose to stay and chose to be abused because you were too scared to live for yourself?
Joe, this is actually, we have so much in common. It's incredible how much in common we have. This is one of the few things, and I get it now, but initially I was really resistant when you started talking about this. Like, I know exactly where you're going right now. Talking about some of the similarities that narcissists and empaths have. And yeah. So you're talking about, you had said that to me. This is when you did shadow work with me. You're like, Sharon, why were you in this relationship? Are you really innocent? What is your role? And at first I was like, are you kidding me? This man was incredibly abusive to me. It wasn't my fault. And you were sweet. You're like, no, it isn't your fault. But why did you stay with somebody who abused you? Why would you be in this relationship for 20 years? What were you missing? Basically, what was wrong with you? But understanding that's where the real healing takes place. That's when you can heal.
It is, because you look and you're like, okay, so this is how I see it. This is how Joe sees it. Joe's nuts, but so to me, the narcissism is my enemy. But the problem, the real problem, the root. Remember, I talked about the symptoms and the root cause.
Yeah.
Real problems between my ears. See, even in my recovery from drugs and alcohol, it's like an onion. Imagine like peeling layers and layers and layers and layers and layers of onion back and back and back. I never really touched on the childhood trauma that I had when I was younger. When my father left, my alcoholic mother, her suicide, the things that she told me when I was growing up, the low self-esteem, all of that went unaddressed. And I believe in my case, the universe was kind of looking out for me. It was like, Joe, you need to learn this lesson. And I've been trying to tap you on the back for the last 20 something years. Maybe there's enough pain in your life. You might actually stop and take a look at this crap. And if I wouldn't have met the narcissist, I would have been absolutely still unconscious about this trauma and this healing that I had to take place inside. The chances of me meeting another narcissist were very high. As a matter of fact, the last 3 years of my marriage, my ex was out and about, missing for days and days. I almost got involved with another narcissist because I would not take the time to look at, the problem, which was my thinking.
That's really scary in a way when you think about it, how connected things are from your childhood up to the present day. It makes me worried about my own kids, and I know a lot of other people that have kids too. This, it's like you said so many times, Joe, narcissism, it's like it's nuclear war. It's like a bomb goes off in your house and it touches every single thing. So yeah, that so many people are in these relationships with narcissists, they get out and then they end up in another relationship with a narcissist. So healing is really essential. How did you get to the point where you could heal, where you were at a point where you could be in another relationship, like a healthy relationship? How did that happen for you?
Well, I didn't know I was ready to be, like, I didn't want another relationship. Like, it got to the point, Sharon, where I started to live for myself again. I started to learn to love myself and appreciate myself. But that was with, like, for me, like a conscious contact with the God of my understanding, like true conscious contact. Like, I do believe that divine intervention came in for me, just like it did for my drugs and alcohol. And that relationship with my creator is more important than anything else in my life. And when I started looking at myself, I started to like love and honor myself. I started looking at it. It's weird. I started looking at that little 8-year-old boy, that 9-year-old boy that was abandoned by his father, that was told that he was the cause why your father left, while his daddy left him. And that, he heard, like, I wish you were never born, and all this garbage. And I started looking at that little boy. And I was like, oh man, dude, like, don't worry, buddy, I'm here. Like, I built a relationship. It was weird in my head somehow with this little kid, which was me.
Were you like parenting yourself in kind of a weird way?
Yeah, and then I know it sounds nuts, but you asked me how I did it. So I started looking at this little boy inside, and I was his protector, and I got to know him. And I was just like, man, I don't want this little kid growing up to be a drug addict, an alcoholic, and meeting all these whacked out like leeches are going to take advantage of him. I want him to be big and strong and have this ideal and know how important he is. The more I started concentrating on that relationship, like in some kind of way, call it osmosis or whatever, the hatred and rage toward the ex-narcissist started to dissipate, where it turned more into an indifference than it did anything else. Like, this relationship that I have today, Cher, like with my God, with myself, is so intriguing. It's so fascinating. It's just a part of who I am. Like, I've learned to honor and love and respect myself. Do I get scared? I do. Like, I don't know. Like, what I have is like a daily reprieve. Like, every day is a reprieve. It's contingent on the maintenance of my spiritual condition, like my relationship with my God. I guess I wasn't looking for a relationship, and here we are a year and a half later. Like, I know myself. Like, I'm a single dad. I got 2 boys, 2 cats, a dog. My mother-in-law living with me. The last thing I ever wanted, when I got healthy enough, I was like, man, I could have a great relationship with myself. Like, I could be friends and, and just be cool. I'm not some 20-year-old kid running around the bars and, going out to frat houses and going to parties. I was like cool with myself, but it just so happened that, God has a weird way of playing anonymous. They call it coincidence, but this is how we met, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was the same for me. I did eventually want to get remarried and be in a relationship, but my plan for that was when my youngest graduated high school, and he's 15. So I have a few more years for that. And yeah, like we just kind of, it just was a weird thing. It happened, but I couldn't, but the thing is, and I'm grateful for this, you and I have both mentioned this, so many people get in these relationships with narcissists and it ruins you forever. You can't trust anybody else. You're always suspicious. You really can't be in a relationship with somebody because you're so afraid. But once you get to the point where you know your own value, that's, I think, the most important thing. You have an idea of your own worth. Because when I was with my ex, I mean, there was something wrong with me to be with somebody like this. He was incredibly abusive. I mean, he really is a horrible person. Why was I with this person? But doing the work, a year and a half later, I'm in a much better place. I'm grateful. I'm grateful for my relationship with you because it's amazing to be in a relationship with somebody who values you, somebody who's also an empath. It's different.
That's sure. Like, we've both been through it. Like that, I didn't really. I get excited about this. Like, we've talked before about. Could you imagine sharing this with maybe another empath that has no idea about narcissistic personality disorder, no idea about like silent treatments and trauma bonds? Like, how the hell am I going to connect? That person would look at me and like, okay, she cheated on you how many times? And she stole this from you, and they're going to look at me. I'm going to be having red flags. Like, run.
Well, yes, that's the thing. It's like I just said a minute ago. I feel so grateful that I'm able to be in a relationship and love and like I trust you. I so many people can't have that. But you're so right. But you can do that, or we can do that. But I never thought about this before. I was talking like, oh, eventually I want to get remarried, be in a relationship. I'm actually, so I don't know if tainted is the right word. I don't know that I could be in a relationship. You're right, with like a quote unquote normal person. Can you imagine me telling, here I am on a date with somebody and we're just talking about the past and I'm mentioning that it was a regular occurrence for my ex to completely ignore me? I mean, that sounds weird.
And then for 7 months, they'd look at you like, okay, I think it's time to wrap it up here. It's funny too, Cher, because we talk to each other. We know each other. We know we've changed. We know who we are today. Even when you tell me some stories and I look at you, I'm like, my God, Cher, like, how did you let that happen? And then immediately it's like, I know how it did. It was you were hostage. You were held hostage. You had 2 kids. You gave up your career. You're smart as a whip. You had a graduate degree, a trauma bond, like just everything. I get it. I get it. And not only that, but our vulnerability, like, see, our love and our compassion, the narcissist saw as a weakness, whereas we see it as strength. Like, when we can be vulnerable and open to each other, and we know what we've been through. Like, the last person I would ever want to hurt in my life, it would be like me hurting me again. If I hurt you in any way, shape, or form, because I know what you've been through. There's a respect and deep admiration that I have, which is why I love doing this every Monday. It's like my little chance of giving back just a little bit.
Yeah, it's amazing. It really is. And for everybody out there who is in the middle of learning to understand who you are and valuing yourself, there really is light at the end of the tunnel. It truly. I thought for so long when I was in my relationship that this is it. A couple of years ago, I stopped giving my ex narcissistic supply. I just stopped, but I still stayed in the relationship. And I believed, and it was partly because I had given up my career, but still, I believed I was stuck. There was no way out for me. It just wasn't going to happen. And for me, God literally saved me. He did for me what I could not do, because that last day when I was with my ex, that he tried to get me arrested, it was as bad as it could be. I mean, truly. It was to the point where, so technically I ended the relationship, but that's just a technicality, because the
Yeah,
reality is I had to.
yeah, you had no choice. It was, yeah, I was in the same boat. And there might be people listening out there right now. They're like, yeah, but you don't understand. Sharon, I had a gun on the table. Like, if it wouldn't have been for my two boys, which was a huge part of why I stayed, I would have taken my life over this. And sometimes it just takes for a person to hold on. Like, if you're researching and listening and communicating with people in this fellowship of narcissistic personality disorder survivors, you are on the right road. Sometimes you just need to hold on and just keep putting one foot in front of the other. And, something's going to change. Nothing stays the same forever. You just have to have that hope.
Oh, hope is the most important thing. If you give up hope, it's difficult to take one step at a time. And that's the truth. Sometimes Joe and I, will have a bad day or whatever, and we'll say to each other, all right, this is a hold on day, because it gets better. You don't, it's not every single day. And I have moments. I had a terrible morning the other day. As some of you may know, I'm going through it right now, because I'm about to serve my extra divorce papers, and I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to do that. I'm actually very afraid and terrified, but I know that I have to hold on, because so many miracles have happened for me. And it's not that I have this blind faith, but everything has been okay. Every time there's been what I consider an insurmountable problem, somehow it's worked out, and it does get better. And I also have the attitude, truly, there's no way I'm going to allow my ex to take one more thing from me. I just will not allow it. He believes to this day that we're going to get back together, not because I've led him on, or because I've given him reason to think this. It's because he's completely delusional. But go ahead.
No, just arrogant, just very.
Yes.
He spoke hope. The irony for me, Cher, is like I had to accept the hopeless condition that I was in with the narcissist. Like, my relationship with my ex, I had to accept that it was hopeless in order for me to find hope for myself in this new life that I was going to have. But I had to accept the fact that it was hopeless. That situation that I was in was a dead end. And ironically, through that hopelessness, I was able to align that in a new life of hope. And like I said, it's nice to have a true friend, like a best friend out there that understands. And we're states away. It's not like we see each other every day. And this is like, it's a tough thing. It takes a little bit of work to do, but it's well worth it.
Yeah, I agree. It's getting close to the end of the video. I'm going to say one more thing, and then Joe, let's figure out where we want to go from here for next week. I just wanted to say to everybody, Joe and I the very first conversation we ever had was on March 26th. That day, both of us were in relationships we were separated, but we were technically married to narcissists, and we were living in this limbo. We both wanted to get out of the relationship. We had no plans, nothing. Not we were just living like floating, drifting out to sea with no idea what was going to happen, none at all. Today, Joe is just about divorce, and I'm just starting the process now. We have changed so much in just 5 months. So for everybody who thinks, yeah, but I have to do this, or I have this insurmountable odd, I'm telling you, so much can change. Both Joe and I, we had no idea we were going to be in this relationship. None.
It wasn't our motive. It wasn't like, hey, my ex has been gone for a year and a half, and we were monkey branching into a. No, long before this, I already had like everything lined up. I was done.
Yeah, well, yeah, me too. You were done, I was done, but we had no plan on the finality of it.
No,
And
none. We no, yeah, we were in limbo. Like every day was like, I don't know, but this is what I want to do. And you put one foot in front of the other, and there's got to be some kind of faith. At least I couldn't imagine life without faith.
oh my gosh, no, me neither. But I just want to give people hope. Like, really, truly, so much can change. Never in a million years would I have thought in March that here I would be in love with somebody and be planning my future and having this great life and actually getting the divorce. Never. But here it is. You just don't know what's going to happen. So, Joe, we're getting close to, like, we're at 30 minutes. So what do you think we should do for next week? Do you think we should continue on chit-chatting or have a specific video in mind?
No, ask what people think, and we'll see if anybody wants us to talk about anything, or if they want me to shut up, or whatever the case is. But we'll leave it to our peeps and see what they say.
All right, so that sounds good. So let us know. We tried something new tonight. It's really fun having Joe on the channel, and I like being able to do the male and female perspective. But let us know what you think. What would you like us to do a video on? Ask us questions, whatever you want. We're open. Joe and I are open books, so it's all good. So thank you so much for watching this video. I truly appreciate it. I hope everybody has a wonderful week. I will see you on Wednesday by myself. And until then, have a good day. God bless.
Have a good day, guys. Happy holidays.